The NFL draft is this week, and the Clemson Tigers have as many as 8 players with a chance to be selected. I'm going to break it all down here. Before we dive into the Clemson players, I'm Ryan Cantor. If you're not already subscribed to this channel, please do so below. I'd really appreciate it. Bit on the NFL draft. One strange but consistent thing about it is those teams draft on potential. They do not draft necessarily on production, and so you'll see star players in college sometimes dip way lower than what as college fans we feel like they should, and you also see players from odd places who weren't that productive go really high. Some examples of that, probably the most infamous of those is Mitchell Trubisky going above Patrick Mahomes and Deshaun Watson. That was a weird pick. Clemson and college fans in general seem to know that it was a weird pick. NFL scouts didn't see it, and of course, it burned the Chicago Bears, who made a big point to get Mitchell Trubisky. But a lot of times they're right too. Josh Allen was good at Wyoming. He wasn't great at Wyoming. He had 15 interceptions in his best season there. Good player, but not a superstar in college. He went really early in the first round to the Bills. Obviously, proved to be a superstar in the NFL. So sometimes they get it right. Some other examples from Clemson. Aaron Kelly was a star at Clemson, but wasn't super fast. Didn't do great on his 40-yard dash, and didn't get picked. Didn't stick with an NFL team. Mitch Hyatt was a superstar, probably the best offensive lineman Clemson's ever had, arguably, and he didn't get drafted. He signed with the Cowboys, but didn't really stick around and become an NFL, consistent starter or anything like that. Taj Boyd set the record for passing touchdowns in the Atlantic Coast Conference and went in the 6th round to the Jets and then got cut before the season started. So sometimes production doesn't equal doesn't equal production in the NFL, and so sometimes the scouts are right about that. Other times it's a little silly, as we saw with Mitchell Trubisky. So we'll try to weave that in here as we look at some of these Clemson players. So here are the 6 players that seem like locks to get drafted. BT Potter has a good chance to be taken in the 6th or 7th round, and Joe Ngata is hoping to get picked as well. He didn't run a good 40 time. He couldn't get under 4.5. It didn't have a ton of production at Clemson in part because of injuries. So him getting picked might be a little iffy. We'll see. Hopefully he gets selected in that last round. But for these guys, it's more about where they get picked. And here are their overall PFF grades. It's a great single number to kind of give you an idea of how good they were in each season. Myles Murphy was a big 5-star recruit, had a great freshman year right off the bat. And Clemson fans thought he would become like a completely dominant superstar. And he was good. He was a good player for Clemson. He had 11 tackles for loss. He had 6.5 sacks this season, was a good productive defensive end. Never really became a true superstar. I think NFL scouts are looking and they're seeing his potential to do that in the NFL, even though he didn't do it at Clemson. He was only there 3 years. So he's a guy who could go higher than his production would merit. Even more so to that on that theme is Bryan Bresee. Bresee only played 25 games at Clemson, which seems odd. He's a name we've heard a lot about, and we've talked a lot about, but he only played 25 games, only had 51 career tackles. He had 5.5 tackles for loss, 3.5 sacks this season. Solid player, but as the PFF grades show, was not a superstar by any means at Clemson, neither on the field, and he missed a lot of time when he was off the field. Now some of that obviously not his fault with tragic circumstances with his family, a kidney infection, he tore his ACL, so he's had a lot happen to him, but not super productive at Clemson, but tons of potential that NFL scouts are going to love. Trenton Simpson, he had kind of an interesting career arc because as a sophomore, he was playing on the outside at Sam linebacker and was excellent. We expected him to really emerge as a superstar, one of the best linebackers in the whole country. This past season in 2022, they moved him to will linebacker on the inside. He struggled with that a bit, picked it up when they moved him back out later in the year. And then Davis Allen, he had 443 receiving yards and 5 touchdowns this year. He was a really solid, well-rounded defensive tight end, but not an athletic freak. He was a good blocker, a good receiver, whereas Brenning Stools still working on the blocking, a great receiver. Davis Allen, good, well-rounded player. We'll see where he goes. And then KJ Henry. KJ Henry, really interesting because he's been at Clemson a while. He redshirted. He's been here 5 years. Could have come back for that 6th COVID year. Chose to go ahead and make the move, which I think is a good call because he had a really excellent redshirt senior season this year. He had 9 tackles for loss, 3.5 sacks. But if you watch the film, as these PFF scouts who watch and grade the film to get these numbers as they did, you'll see he was excellent all year, harassing quarterbacks, stopping the run, and that's why he got the highest grade this year of any player entering the NFL draft from Clemson at 83.1. So hopefully he gets a lot of credit for this year, and it isn't dinged too much for having such a long career at Clemson, where he really popped at the end. Hopefully, I guess my concern is that NFL scouts may see all that potential coming out, and maybe there not being a ton more potential for them to pull out. But hopefully they reward him for a phenomenal senior season. It would be a really good example of a player sticking it out, not transferring, not trying to jump early, taking his time, developing and becoming a very good player. Jordan McFadden is a guy I'm really keeping an eye on in this draft. Clemson needs to have some offensive linemen taken early, and more offensive linemen taken in general as they try to build a strength there. And what, in terms of an NFL pipeline at least, has really been a weakness, certainly not a strength. So the Tigers really would like to see more offensive linemen get taken and taken early. McFadden's had a great career at Clemson. You can see there those PFF grades for 4 years are all very good. He's been extremely productive at Clemson. You see his number dips a bit this year. He was excellent in 2021. He was good in 2022, in part because he played injured for much of the year. Um, he's a little bit short for an offensive tackle. Certainly not short in general. He's 6'2", but it seems like that could be something that NFL scouts ding him on, which is really frustrating. You like to see players rewarded for what they accomplish, not for physical attributes, but that could be the case for McFadden. So let's turn it over to some mock drafts and see where these guys are projected to go. So Myles Murphy, you see, Vinny Iyer of Sporting News has him going 8th overall to the Falcons. That's about as high as I saw. But everyone, for the most part, has him going in the first round. He seems pretty close to a first round lock. Bresee, more first round or second round, which makes sense because he doesn't have the track record Murphy had because he only played 25 college games, but he has so much potential. Now, one mock draft by CBS's Josh Edwards has him going 24 to the Jacksonville Jaguars. That's the highest anyone has him, and it would be a lot of fun if he can go to Jacksonville with Travis Etienne, Trevor Lawrence. Simpson has a wide band here, with 2 of these mock drafts having him go in the first round, one having him go as late as pick 71 in the third round. I don't think he'll go in the first round, not because of anything related to him, just the way the NFL draft works. Linebackers don't tend to get taken that high. The NFL draft, if you look at most of these mocks, it's a ton of quarterbacks, defensive linemen, a couple superstar wide receivers, and a lot of cornerbacks tend to be taken in the first round. Players like running backs, linebackers, tight ends, unless there's something really extraordinary, rarely hit that first round. So I think Simpson's probably a second round or a third round would seem really late. He had an excellent combine. He weighs 235 pounds. He ran a 4.43 40-yard dash. That's great at that size. So I think second round for him. It would surprise me if he dropped any lower than that. But to be a linebacker in the first round is tough. He certainly can do it, given he was fairly productive in college, and he's got some great metrics at the combine. Davis Allen, I think he'll be drafted. You see, as early as the third round is probably his ceiling there. So we would love to see him go that early. KJ Henry, I'm seeing everything from third to fifth round. Just don't know, given he had such a long college career and really popped all at the end. So it'll be interesting to see what they do there. And then again, McFadden, these picks are all over the place, from fourth round all the way down to the seventh round. So he's definitely a guy to keep an eye on. We'd really love to see him go high. Both for him, he's a guy who stuck with Clemson for a good long productive career, and also for the Tigers' future recruiting at the position. Lastly, again, if you're not already, please subscribe to this channel. I'd really appreciate it. The way that YouTube does their monetization, you have to have 1,000 subscribers before they'll pay you a penny. So I'd really appreciate it if you could subscribe. Thanks for watching, and enjoy the NFL draft.